Welcome to another edition of Heavy Live with Scoop B. I am Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, senior writer here at Heavy, and the NBA Finals is a 3-1 Lakers lead, and the optics for the finals could not have been possible without a special guest of mine. I got esteemed, seasoned NBA photographer Andrew Bernstein on Heavy Live with Scoop B. Andrew, welcome to Heavy Live with Scoop B.
Hey, Scoop, great to see you again, my friend. We see each other virtually, but it's better than the alternative of not seeing each other. So thank you.
It's about that time. We've got a lot of stuff going on, the finals, COVID-19, and we're all trying to figure out how to find our way. It's been a very, very busy time. You're actually in the bubble.
Yeah, I am still in the bubble. I'm in day 50 right now. Got here on August 20th, and I think we're in the home stretch right now.
Yeah, I think I said Lakers in 6.
That was a good prediction, especially when Miami was healthy and they were going to give them a good run. But it's tough to see a team that just doesn't have, all its top guns and ready to go, especially, being a 5 seed and getting to this point. I know it's disappointing for Pat Riley, the Heat organization, but look, they got a lot of fight left in them, man. We saw that in Game 3, and even last night, Game 4, they still came out to play. They're not rolling over for any intent and purposes whatsoever.
No, I think there's a validity there. Last night, that game, LeBron kind of turned it on at the right time. How many different versions of that shot, the 3 off that screen? I think it was Duncan Robinson, and then he switched off on Jimmy Butler. How many versions of that shot did you get last night?
Well, at that point, I was just shooting with the one camera in front of me. But when you say versions, I'm thinking back to how many versions of LeBron have I seen take that shot? Going back to really his rookie year, but his first finals in 07. And I mean, the guy is just mind-blowingly amazing to me at his age and what he's still able to accomplish. I mean, I haven't seen any drop, whatsoever in his step, certainly in his commitment, his competitive spirit, but his game is still top level, man. It's unbelievable at 37 years old.
No, that's valid. I as I'm watching the game, I'm looking at it from a couple different lenses, no pun intended. I'm curious to know from your perspective in this finals, how have you had to adjust your vantage point because of the bubble? Where's the biggest adjustment for you versus being in an arena in years past?
Well, I think the most glaring difference is you can see it on TV. When you're watching the game, you don't see any videographers or photographers on the court. So the quadrants, all 4 quadrants are completely clean, which is very unusual. When I started in all the finals up until maybe 3 or 4 years ago, those baselines and up the sidelines were packed with photographers. They could have been up to 60 photographers and videographers on the court, maybe more. So that's the biggest difference. So my photo position has been moved off the court. And if you see, if you look at the court, you can see that there's advertising signage around the court, almost like they do in the Olympics or international. And we are actually behind that, kind of in the darkness, So if you look at the screen in the full court, one basket to the other, I'm in the bottom left, basically, on the visitor bench side. I'm sorry, the home bench side, but in the corner. So you can't really see me unless there's some crazy loose ball or something and the camera swings over there. But even then, I don't think you could see because I'm in total darkness over there, quite frankly.
Yeah, it feels like a video. It feels like 2K. I don't think I really see too many camera people in that.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say, how you say that, Scoop, because they have that rail camera that goes, goes left to right or right to left or whatever in the court, and you could never do that in a regular arena because there'd be fans sitting there. So I was watching, of course, the completion of the regular season, and then the play-in games in the first round before I got here, and it looked different. It looked kind of the same, but it looked different because of that rail camera thing, and also there's no fans, and they got the virtual fans and all that. But then when I got here and I walked into the arena, and it is an arena, but it's actually almost a set that's built in an arena.
Mhm.
Um, it was literally like I was walking into a video game. I mean, it was so weird adjustment, and there's no energy from the fans in the building, but the NBA has done the best they can with they're piping in music, they're piping in a lot of fan noise. So the environment is as close as you can get without having live fans there. But it was an adjustment. It actually still is every game.
I believe it. My mind from watching it at home, I think of or have tried to make comparisons or place it with something I've seen.
Mm.
Tell me if this is an accurate assessment or at least somewhat close. The NBA AllStar Game, I think it was in 2010 in Dallas, Texas.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
any similarity there?
That's interesting because that was in the football stadium, right? What's it called?
Mhm.
Texas Stadium, where the
Yes.
Cowboys play. And that was really bizarre, honestly. I'm glad you brought that up because they put the basketball court in the middle of the field, right? But they raised it up. I don't know. They must have raised it up like 4 feet or something from the
Mhm.
floor, from the actual, playing surface of the football field. So you were actually on a stage. But the weirdest thing about that scoop was that, yes, you're in a football stadium, and we have had all-star games in stadiums before, the Astrodome, the Kingdome. I think in Indiana we were in there. But having be up on a stage, but also the giganticness, if that's a word, of the scoreboard there, um, which was, I believe it was longer than the basketball court, quite frankly.
Mhm.
And it's just this gigantic thing is hanging over your head. It was very disconcerting. I got to tell you, I have a little bit of claustrophobia, and it's hard to say you have claustrophobia in a 100,000 seat stadium, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of being like in an MRI machine because you got this like huge thing over you. I don't know if you've ever been in an open MRI. I do have claustrophobia in MRI, so I have to have these open ones. But they have this like massive thing, over your head and over your body. Anyway, it kind of felt like that. But that's a really good comparison. But of course, they had a stadium full of people. I think they had like 60,000 people at that game, or maybe more.
Exactly.
So that's a big difference.
Exactly. AT&T Stadium uh,
Yeah.
is no joke. Home of the Dallas Cowboys. Here with Andy Bernstein. Andy, you have 30 years or more experience as a photographer, taking pictures of anyone from the Showtime Lakers
Hmm.
to Michael Jordan on the Bulls, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen to the Dream Team,
Hmm.
1992. I want to go back to the Dream Team and not to limit, LeBron James and in between that, Allen Iverson, Tim Duncan, all of those people.
Hmm.
I want to go back to the Dream Team because I think that was such an iconic um, team for a lot of reasons. And we talked about it on my podcast, Scoopy Radio, but for the optical purposes on camera, I'm curious to know from your perspective um, what it was like in Barcelona with the Dream Team.
Wow, that was my greatest assignment ever. 7 weeks embedded with that team from day one of training camp, which was in San Diego, through Tournament of the Americas in Portland. Then we went to Monaco for training, more training camp, and then of course Barcelona for the Olympics. And it was special, Scoop. I mean, that was an incredible group of guys that bonded immediately. They had the perfect coach in Chuck Daly. This is pre-social media, so there wasn't a lot of I don't know. There just wasn't a lot of personal hype going on. It was all about them being a group. And you know, Chuck Daly was great at getting guys like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, you know, guys with pretty big egos, but with the, you know, great resumes too, to buy into the team concept, and be leaders. And I remember the practices, which of course you know about, and listeners and viewers know about, you know, were legendary. I mean, the only real competition they got was from each other. So the practices were amazing, starting in San Diego, and they just enjoyed being part of history. And I really felt like I was, you know, I was a fly on the wall of history right there, because you know, just to be hanging out with those guys in the training room or locker room, on the bus, the plane, whatever it was, yeah, and they're truly letting their guard down and just being part of the family, and all the adventures that we had. You know, we went to the palace. The Prince Renier hosted a state dinner basically for the Dream Team in Monaco. I mean, who gets to do that? You know, that was pretty cool. I went golfing with, well, I don't golf, but I went to photograph Michael Jordan golfing at probably the most beautiful golf course I'd ever seen in my life,
Sure.
in Monaco. So the team was, it was amazing. They were on a mission. You know, they're on a seek and destroy mission because they were taking no prisoners. That team, you know, they came out to play from the beginning, as we saw, and but the reverence that the other teams had for them, you know, other teams were like posing for pictures with them during, you know, warm ups. I mean, it's like, when does this ever happen? So it was a great experience. I made a lot of friends on that trip. I was able to bring my dad on that trip, which was unbelievable. A great bonding experience for he and I. And you know, a lot of other things come close, but as an assignment, as a block of time, nothing will ever compare to that.
No, that's that '92 Dream Team was special. Even the names that weren't Michael and Magic, you had Clyde Drexler, Patrick Ewing,
Hmm.
Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious to know what it was like watching those guys. I'm going to use an Allen Iverson word. What was it like watching those guys in practice?
Eh, they were intense. They were bringing their A game. You know, they were obviously egos, and they were super hyper competitive. And you know, there might have been some lingering lingering laundry from the you know, playing in the association. You know, Michael and Magic had just basically the year before played each other in the finals, and it was a little bit of, you know, we all felt, and I'm sure they felt, it was a passing of the torch. I mean, we had gone through, you know, Magic's HIV announcement, David Stern reinstating him for the All-Star game, and of course embracing, you know, the whole world, but the basketball world embracing him for the Olympic team. There were a lot of things going on, and just watching them in practice was amazing, because Magic has talked about, like, there weren't any other times that these guys ever played together, you know, on the same team. They might have played against each other, like a East-West situation all-star, but they never played each other. Like Magic and Larry were never on the same team together. You know? So it was a beautiful thing. And then you saw relationships that you would never in a million years, you know, think these guys would be friends. But Larry Bird and Patrick Ewing became like buds, you know, on this trip. In fact, they were coined the Harry and Larry show, you know, because remember Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and they were hilarious. They were like a stand-up comedy act. These two guys, if you could believe it. Uh, but the practices were intense, and Chuck Daly and his staff. You know, remember who was on that staff? PJ Carlissimo, Coach K, Lenny Wilkins. I mean, you had some pretty Hall of Fame caliber coaches on there. Um, and Chuck knew how to push buttons, and he knew how to get the guys motivated. But I didn't think there was a lot of motivation other than, you know, just hooping it. They loved it. It was like being back on the schoolyard for these guys, and it was wonderful to see, actually, for me.
You talked about. I think if this career in photography doesn't work out, I think maybe anchoring may be in your wheelhouse. I know you do a show over at Spectrum in LA. Um,
Hmm.
Is it Legend? No, your podcast is Legend of Sports. The name of your
Right.
show on Fox or excuse me on Spectrum is what?
It's called Through the Lens.
Okay.
It's a show that I've done where I sit down with a Laker personality and talk about their career through my photos. Been a little bit on a hiatus for a little while. We're hoping to kind of rekindle it for this upcoming, whenever the next upcoming season is. But I've really enjoyed it. I had great guests: Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, Jeannie Buss, James Worthy, Robert Ory, a lot of great people. My good friend Gary Beatty. And it's all about stories through my photos. I mean, the photos just are kind of the catalyst for a discussion. So it'd be like if you were sitting around a bar, or in your living room with these guys and just chatting about history.
You made mention of the passing of a baton, and I want to delve in a little bit more into that. I want to zoom in a lot more on that statement, only because as a kid, when the Dream Team happened, I was like 6 or 7 years old, and fell in love with the league a year before that. And for me, you heard older people say things about Magic versus Michael, like what if Michael and Magic had not contracted the virus, and where Michael stood and all that other stuff. Do you, in your heart of hearts, or just from your expertise, feel as though the Dream Team was that seminal moment of passing the baton from Magic to Michael?
I think it happened a little bit before that, honestly. I think it happened with Michael's first championship in '91. I mean, everybody knew, that the Magic and Bird era had kind of run its course. Larry, God bless him, he still came and participated with the Dream Team, but his back was a mess. He's always just laying on his back, working it out, just trying to will himself to play and stuff. But I guess if you want to point to a moment in time, it probably was, the passing of the torch. Although I think the torch really was passed, when Michael won that first championship in '91. And everyone knew that, look, this guy was special. There were a lot of marketing things going on with Michael. He had elevated the profile of the NBA and as a marketable entity to a degree. I don't know if anybody except David Stern or Rick Welts or anybody in the league office really could foresee, honestly, the explosion of excitement. But what the NBA did, what the Dream Team did for the NBA in that summer, Rick Welts, who was one of the architects of the Dream Team, he was the architect of AllStar Weekend, by the way, one of my great friends, president of the Warriors. Rick Welts says that the NBA jumped 10 years in that summer, in terms of status, viewership, marketing, probably revenue, everything else, because of how popular the Dream Team was and how much attention worldwide, in our country, but worldwide, it brought to NBA basketball.
Do you think that, other than Magic and Michael, I guess that baton passing, like when I watched The Last Dance, for example, some could perceive Michael and Magic, or excuse me, Michael and Kobe didn't have a relationship, but then you look back at the tape, you see that early on, Michael was encouraging him. Michael saw something.
Yep.
Do you think, has there ever been a baton, in your experience in the last 30 plus years, has there been a similar baton passing with Magic to Michael? Is there anybody else? Because I feel like Duncan was kind of like that bridge. Iverson was that culture when Michael retired and came back, but Kobe, I think, kind of just was told that he was that. And then I didn't see a baton passing with Kobe and LeBron, but I feel like LeBron has positioned himself to pass that baton. All of that being said, from your perspective, have you actually seen an official baton passing, or who do you see that baton being passed to next?
Well, you brought up Tim Duncan, which is a great example because he had a mentor and a teammate in David Robinson who was so giving and so willing to pass the baton and voice that. David was at the end of his career. They won a championship together. He very much wanted Tim to seamlessly move into that position, which was incredibly generous. But if you know David, one of the most giving and generous people out there, basically egoless, honestly. Michael, I guess in The Last Dance a little bit, although he never said it, you kind of got the feeling like he was passing the baton. You know, that first All-Star game where he talks about that Laker kid or whatever.
Yeah.
You could sense that he was intrigued, like his antenna was up, you know, about this young kid. And I think Kobe didn't look at it as, quite frankly, a baton passing, because Kobe always said he didn't want to be the next Michael Jordan. He wanted to be the first Kobe Bryant. But all that said and done, when Kobe started racking up championships, the baton was officially passed. Whether it was willingly done or it was consciously done, you know, those first three championships spoke for themselves, and it was a new era. You know, the Shaq and Kobe era was a whole new era from what we had just gone through with the 6 Bulls championships, the Jordan era, Showtime before that, you know, and that's really the breadth of my career. So now it's so interesting because we're seeing LeBron, who you know came to life during the Kobe era. You know, Kobe was leading the Lakers to 2 championships basically in 2009 and 10. LeBron had already been to the finals at that point, but didn't win his first championship yet.
Right.
And now, you know, the guy is in his 10th finals, which is like, I don't even know. I can't even believe it, how incredible that is. Still playing at a high level, but you're seeing guys, you know, that are just, you know, it's truly the next generation. I mean, look at Devin Booker. I mean, you know, these guys, what's his name? Murray from Denver. So, you know, I don't know. And I know how proud LeBron is, and how he probably is not willing to pass the baton as willingly as we would all kind of hope. But all being said, I think he would feel like the game is in really good hands as his career is winding down. Look, the guy, how many more years is he going to play? And it's very important to him. And he has spoken about how it's important to him that the game is in good hands after, you know, he moves on. And I think the other guys are seeing that and appreciate that and see him, you know, as a mentor and a leader. You know, and let's not forget about guys like Chris Paul, you know, who has led the way both on and off the court and continues to and will continue to afterwards. So it's not just about basketball. It's about affecting social change, voting, raising awareness, using their platforms to do good things. You know, where in the past it was really just about basketball, quite frankly, because there wasn't really social media. And a lot of the social causes were talked about, and guys, you know, were active, but they didn't have the platforms that these guys have. I mean, LeBron has what, 50, 60 million followers? I mean, you know, where do you get, and plus he has the whole media machine to put his message out, which is an incredible thing.
Andy, tell me something. What is the best meal? You're in day 50. I know Chris is in day 100. You're half of that, but I'm curious to know from your perspective. Softball question. What's the best meal that you've had in the bubble?
Oh, Scoop, I'm dying to get home and have one of my wife's homemade paellas. She makes the most amazing paella. My wife is an amazing cook, by the way. But the best meal I had, we went to the Grand Floridian. Our boss, who runs NBA Photos, Joe Amati, brought us as a group over there, 6 of us. And we had a wonderful meal there. We had like a whole surf and turf meal. That was great. The food here, God bless Disney, they're doing the best they can. I happen to be on a restrictive diet. I'm on a gluten-free diet, which isn't easy. I've ate more chicken in these last 50 days than I think I'll ever eat in the rest of my life.
Right.
They literally have chicken 3 times a day for gluten-free people like me. So, but the other day I had, what did I have? Oh, they have great omelets. There's one restaurant on campus here that we're allowed to go to, and it's open. And fantastic omelets. In fact, after we're done, that's where I'm going for an omelet. So thank you for reminding me.
We're here. We're here. I'm curious. You're at the Media Hotel, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. When I see people doing Zooms, and I've not asked, but I'm going to ask you. I
Yeah.
see that gray background in the back. I used to lifeguard, and so it looks like a lifeguard locker. What is that in the background?
So behind those doors, this is like The Price is Right. Behind the doors, that's the bathroom.
That's what that
So
gray door
uh,
is.
yeah, they're sliding wooden doors that meet
Okay.
in the middle. That's the bathroom. I mean, it's the only decent background in this, like, what 50 square foot room that I have. Maybe it's less than that. Um, and keep in mind, I was quarantined in here for 7 days, where I could not leave this room. They would bring the food to me, leave it outside the door. The only time I could leave was for literally 10 minutes a day to walk down the hall to get tested. And we still get tested every day.
Hmm.
Um, we have to self-test in the morning, and then we have to go and get physically tested with swab, a nasal and oral swab. So um, I won't miss this room. I got to be honest with you. They've taken good care of us here. Don't get me wrong, but it kind of reminds me. The whole experience reminds me of. I don't know if you ever went to summer camp as a kid, like a sleepaway camp, right? So it's kind of like that when you're like 11, 12 years old, and parents, or you get on the bus or whatever, your parents drop you off, and then you have this like 4 weeks of 8 weeks in front of you. It's very daunting, at the beginning, and you're away from everything. And it's like that, and then combine that with like your freshman year in college, where there's like adults all living together and like basically under one roof. It's an interesting dynamic, Scoop.
No, I believe it. What is one thing, or not even? I won't quantify with one thing. I'll say you've been on the road for 30 plus years.
Yeah. Don't
So
short don't short me out of 10, because I'm in my 39th year right now. So
okay, so rewind the tape. You've been around for
yeah,
39 years. For next
yeah,
year, your 40th year.
yeah.
Congratulations in advance.
Thank you. Knock on wood.
Um, you've been on the road for years. I would imagine that 6 months was, other than the NBA lockout 2 times, this is the most you've been home with nothing to do or something to do. What
Hmm.
have you learned about yourself?
Well, I learned that I have to be versatile, and that I have to be able to draw upon other projects, other things that I'm working on. I mean, I've been in the process, myself and three partners, of launching Legends of Sport, which is my platform that is the same name of my podcast. We're actually in our third season. I'm about to do my 100th episode, which is pretty amazing.
Nice.
So we partnered with the LA Times. We were in discussions with the LA Times all last year and into the pandemic, and we finalized our agreement with them and launched the podcast on the LA Times platform. And they also host all of our archive as well before we were with them.
Yeah.
We launched with a 16-week block called Restarting the Clock. Basically, the return to play of the NBA and WNBA. So each week was a themed episode. We talk about coaches, we talk about the bubble experience, we talk about legendary finals, matchups, whatever, rivalries. So we're in week 14 now, I think. We have two more to go. Um, one will be a wrap up of the finals next week, and then the week after that will probably be, well, I don't want to jinx it. I'll hopefully have a great guest and a roundtable discussion with the LA Times journalists who have been here. So that kept me busy. Actually, at the beginning of the pandemic, Scoop, I was doing two podcasts a week. I was doing a regular show. This is before we launched on the Times. Regular show with the guest.
Hmm.
So we had Pau Gasol, I had Sue Bird, I had people of that caliber. But I
Nice.
was also doing a legendary photographer series, sports photographers. So these were all friends of mine, or giants of the sports photography um, trade that I've been lucky to be a part of, that we could have great discussions and talk about their careers. And that was really well received, actually, not just by the photography community or sports community, but people really love to know those stories, those creative people. um, so I kept busy. It was really great, honestly, to be home with my family. My office is almost walking distance from my house, so I really would go from in the morning from my house to my office. There was no one in my office. My office is in a little bit of industrial. There.
Yeah,
Oh,
you cut in and out for a second. I felt like you were on live TV in Afghanistan. You know how there's like a 15-second delay.
I know, it's weird. There was a call, and I put my phone on do not disturb, but for some reason, some call got through. But anyway,
Somebody.
um, all th- all this to say that it was great to be home. You know, my daughter was finishing up the sixth grade. My wife is a lawyer; she was working from home, so we kind of prepared a whole home office for her. I am never home ever on my birthday, which is at the end of April. So that was nice. And I'm never home in May and June. I've been traveling like a maniac for, 39 years. So it was great to be home with my family and um, reconnect in a way at a time that, I'm not usually there.
Yeah.
Now, combine that now with being away for 50 days, a little bit of a trade-off, but I am glad to be working because, like you said, it almost 6 months without working. Everything shut down on March 11th. Not only my NBA work, Lakers and Clippers, but we also do the LA Kings. The director of photography for Staples Center and Microsoft Theater. So all our live shows and events gone, and we still don't know when those are coming back. So very grateful to Adam Silver and everybody for inventing this bubble experience and putting me back to work.
Kobe Bryant, a legend,
Hmm.
passed away on January 26, 2020. Um, I marveled at your work. I think that was you. Those pictures with LeBron, and times he would appear at Staples Center, whether it was pictures with LeBron and having conversation with he and AD. And if I'm not mistaken, you actually took pictures of of Kobe and Luka Doncic at Staples Center as well. Was that you?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
What was that energy like when Kobe came back to visit Staples those few times during the season?
Well, he would come back with Gigi, which was beautiful. It's beautiful to see a father daughter enjoying a basketball game together, but it was much, as we know, much deeper than that. And he was so, and still is, but showing up in the building, there was so much love for him there. I mean, the building would just erupt when they saw him walk in, and then players, like Luca and all the visiting players, the current players would come over and chat, and referees would come over. And I think he enjoyed it. I think he was completely, totally at peace with hanging it up and not playing anymore. And I can't say what was going through his head, at least the first couple of times, but the last time I saw him, a few days before the tragedy, he was there at the game with Gigi, enjoying it, coaching her from the seat there, showing her the ropes of the game, the intricacies. It was beautiful, and he and I had a wonderful relationship. I loved seeing him. Every time I'd see him after he retired, he would rib me. He said, "Man, you still doing this?"
And of
I'm
course,
like,
that
"Yeah,
was the
Bobo."
edited version.
Right. And like some of us can't retire yet, you know what I'm saying? But we were so fortunate to do our book together, and
Yeah.
of course the book is now the thread with so many fans, for his legacy and remembering how great he was, because the book was his own.
Somebody loves Andy Bernstein a lot because they're calling his phone like crazy. Heavy live with
I
Scoop.
I tried, Scoop. I tried.
So right now I hear you, but I don't see you on the screen.
Hmm. Well, hold on. Let's see if we can make that work.
Okay, we're
Should
here
work.
now.
I mean,
No,
I'm in.
I don't see you.
Oh, that's weird, man. I mean, I can hear you and see you too. I see my name there. The camera is active.
So it was a black screen. Then it was your face, like a blank picture, like on your iPhone,
Right.
a number. Now it's black again.
That's
Uh,
messed up, Scoop. I
um,
don't know what to tell you, man.
about this? Why don't you log out
Yeah.
and then log back in, and then you should be fine.
Huh.
So here you go. So Andy Bernstein will be back in a second. Heavy Live with Scoop B. Let's take a reset for a second. Legendary NBA photographer, 39 years in the game, has shot photos of anybody from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to Kobe Bryant to LeBron James to Michael Jordan and a myriad of other people, and has covered the Dream Team in Barcelona. That's when I first paid attention to his work and what he had going on, and for years and years and years, he's been a trusted photographer. Has his Legends of Sport podcast and has a show as well on Spectrum Sports, as he indicated, is on a hiatus for a bit. But really and truly and through, Andy Bernstein is a pillar within the NBA community, currently in the bubble right now. Ben, if you can, I know that Andy is checking back in. Can you make sure that that happens? He logged in and he's logging back out. But no, really and truly, there he is.
Yeah, I'm back.
I was singing your high praises while we were figuring out what was next. You were talking about Kobe Bryant, and you were talking about the book as the thread.
Yeah.
You or the consumer, the fans, as well as he is the player. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's a very unique relationship that he and I had. I mean, where have you ever really seen an athlete who's been with the team for 20 years in the same city, photographed by the same?
Are you there, Andy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
man.
yeah. Somebody's blowing your phone up.
I know, dude. I am sort of on the clock here, so probably somebody from work. But, Kobe and I had a great relationship. I was so fortunate that he let me into his inner sanctum, his inner circle from day one, honestly. And we were able to put this book together, which was his vision and his mission, really, to tell his story in his own words through my photos. I mean, how generous of an act was that? And we were very proud of the book when it came out in 2018. It's exactly the book that he wanted to do. It was the book he kind of talked me into doing that kind of book. Honestly, I wanted to do more of a picture book, coffee table book. But no, he said, no, I want to tell my story. I don't want anyone else to tell my story. I want to tell my story. And so we did that. And the book was divided into process and craft. We had to source out the photos. Keep in mind, half of his career was shot in the film days. So, stuff really isn't online. We had to make a deep dive into the NBA photos. Film archive had great editors helping us. The designer was terrific that we used. And, now the book really has continued his legacy and has really made an incredible impression on me as to how beloved he actually is and was in his career. But now, of course, that we don't have him. I look at the book all the time. I get to talk about it with folks like you. It keeps my memory of him alive, very much so. I think about him all the time. Thinking about him right now. Thinking about how many times was I in this position with him, that he was one win away from an NBA championship. 5 times actually. So, and it's a little bittersweet for me right now because there's a lot of discussion about Kobe right now, and the Lakers, are on a mission to win this for him, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. But it is, it conjures up a lot of mixed emotions, sadness, of course, grief, which I don't think any of us will ever get over, but also, honestly, a lot of gratitude that I was so fortunate to have him in front of my camera for 20 years and be a friend of his.
Last question, because I know you're on the clock and you got to get a late breakfast. Assuming Lakers do close this out, they have a 3-1 lead if they're able to, close this out Friday or next week. You thought about the process of your photos that you'll take with confetti and trophy when the Lakers close it out because of how COVID has structured things? Like, is there a discussion about that? Is there a thought process? What is your thought process?
It's interesting, Scoop. Right before we got on, my boss actually called me, and we're going to have a production meeting about that tomorrow when we're over at the arena. Today, everyone has the day off, but tomorrow we have a production meeting after the media availability and practices to discuss all that, because they still have to be very careful with the COVID protocols. But there is family here, that have gone through the protocols, and they'll be bringing them down to celebrate whichever team wins. Let's assume it's going to be the Lakers at this point. But I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to run on the court like I always do, and run into the locker room and do all that. So that remains to be seen. I guess we'll have to do a follow-up at some point and go over that. But I'm hopeful that there will be, some easing of the social distance mandates that we've been under, this entire time.
Leave it there, brother. Enjoy your lunch, your brunch, dinner, whatever you want to call it, and we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Scoop.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for putting up with these weird interruptions, but it's a live thing. What can you say? But great connecting with you as always, man.
Of course, man. Be safe out there, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Scoop. Take care, man. Thank you.
You heard it first, Andrew.